there, Guildmaster Dan here, and welcome to the Fourth Wall. It has been a while, but seeing as I am currently on lunch at work and stuck in my car while a torrential downpour goes on outside, I couldn't think of a better time to talk about racial diversity in fantasy worlds. So, alright, not all of you might have seen this, but a while back, a couple of years now, I did a video with a few other YouTubers where we watched the Dungeons & Dragons movie, the really bad one, the first one, the really bad one, where we watched that and we commented on it. And there was a scene in it where it was in a tavern, and there was all sorts of races in the tavern. There was humans and dwarves, and one thing that I had commented on in the commentary was that there were orcs there, and naturally I played up the joke like, oh, there's orcs and dwarves in this tavern. That's really odd. You would think there'd be an instant fight to the death there, and the comment was made that okay, Guildmaster Dan is racist. You know, all in good fun, all joking and everything. But that got me to thinking, what sort of racial diversity does everybody have in their games? Now, I know that largely depends on what sort of world you're running in, what themes you have to the world that you're running. But I've noticed that in a lot of games, especially for newer GMs that run, say, Dungeons & Dragons like 3.5 and up, there's a lot more racial diversity, even to the point where it's been designed into the game that there's more races, there's just lots more options, and that makes sense from a player's standpoint. You know, different races, there's novelty to it, yada yada. So you will see a lot of games out there that have intermingled races to the point where you can go into a city, you can find any race in that city. Some might be more rare than others, but you find every race in that city, and they get along just fine. Now, I've also played in some old school games that, you know, they try to emulate the ignorance of the medieval era. So races are very segregated. They don't really deal with each other. When they do, there's misunderstandings or fighting. Now, there's no real right or wrong to it. As it's fantasy. Fantasy can be whatever. It all depends on what sort of world you're running. For me, what I tend to go for in my worlds is kind of like a regionalized diversity. Races will largely be sectioned out to different regions, and the closer you are to those regions, the more intermingling you'll find with them. Like, for example, I've been running a game of Mutants and Masterminds Fantasy for the past year, and it takes place in a queendom. It takes place in a human nation. And there are other races around, as they have surrounding territories, or in case of like dwarves and halflings, they're actually intermingled because they only have like small communities. Without getting too much into it, there's only minor truly intermingling with like dwarves and halflings, but they're rarer than humans. But as for the other races, say elves, or in my case the Shokan, when you reach their nations, the closer you get to them, that's when you'll start to see more of them. Otherwise, you don't really see intermingling so much. And I try and go for that because that feels realistic to me. You know, the closer you are to a race's native lands, the more of them you're going to see. The more influence from their culture you're going to see, and the more interactions between people. And I generally go for, you know, there are general attitudes about the different races for humans and for each other. For example, in my world, elves and dwarves aren't rivals, but the Shokan and dwarves are. So naturally, they have that rivalry going on between them. They see each other. You know, Shokan in my world also kind of replace orcs. They're kind of like Mongolians in my realm, where they have like a land of steeps off to the west that they dwell from. But otherwise, when you find them in the human nation, it's either as bandits or mercenaries. So that's kind of how they're seen. They're generally feared by the general public because number one, you don't see a lot of them. Number two, the times that you do see them are only ones that are there, you know, to do war, whether for pay or for pleasure. And I have other ones, but the point I get at is there's different ways you can do racial diversity. And I've seen it where there are the games that have them completely intermingled, and everybody knows what every race is, everybody knows their culture, yada yada, move on. And that's fine. If you're playing in a very, I want to say, modernized sort of setting, a setting where with modern day attitudes in that setting, which naturally makes it an easy fit for players, that makes sense. If you're trying to go for a more realistic, medieval sort of recreationist sort of feel to your world, then there's going to be a lot of ignorance there and a lot of hate. The races will not mingle, and more often than that will attack each other, probably on sight, or be very distrustful in the very least. I don't really have a lot of advice for it, other than know the tone. Like, when you're making your world, know the tone of the game that you're going for. Know for what type of world you're trying to build. What's the theme of your campaign and your world. Know those before you start getting to the nitty-gritty of how are the races intermingled, because really that's what's going to set it. Other than that, there's no really right answer. It could be anything, because like I said, it's fantasy, so anything goes. So what do you guys think? How do you have the races diversified in your world? Are they divided and segregated, or are they intermingled, intermixed, and like make federations, things like that? You know, tell me about your games. Please feel free to leave a comment below. Please like, share, and subscribe. And hopefully I'll have some more videos for you guys soon. Otherwise, thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.